pleasure to be here, and it's a key year to be speaking about Latin America, right? Like,
Yes.
we are seeing valuations and fundraising growing as crazy. I think in the first half of 2021, we've seen 6 billion raised in the region, which is already more than the whole past year. The situation is really, really peaking. 191 exits, one unicorn from Brazil in the top 10 unicorns, Nubank. So the situation and the opportunity size is amazing. And I would like to start the panel with that. What is the opportunity in LATAM? Why is the opportunity so hot? And I'm going to start with you, Laura, that
Yes, of course.
you know well the reason.
Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. So I think that it's exactly what you said. In one side, finally, the world has realized that Latin America has a lot to offer. But the truth is that the talent in Latin America has always been outstanding. So you have amazing founders that finally are getting the attention. And just to give you more numbers, in the last year, we've been from 11 unicorns to 28, just in 1 year, which is amazing. There's obviously this big funds effect, but at the same time, there was bones right there of amazing founders building crazy companies. At the same time, the circumstances in those countries are so different to what we're used to in mature markets like the US or Europe, that when those people build something, it's something that can conquer the world, let's say that way. We've seen super apps and crazy businesses from Asia coming to Europe, and we're going to see amazing opportunities and companies from Latin America expanding to the US and Europe very soon. It's already happening. So I'm celebrating that finally they got the attention they deserve.
Laura again, and then I'm gonna pick it up with you guys. Why did you decide, when you are ex-director of growth at Facebook, you had a lot of experience in Spain, US, why did you decide to launch your fund with a focus on Latin America? What made you make the decision?
So I think that when I was in San Francisco, I was based in Silicon Valley for many years. I used to meet founders that were coming from all over the world, from emerging tech hubs, and it was fascinating to see that these people were building things that were more powerful than what the founders from existing mature tech hubs were doing. But they were not getting the access to capital, to key people in those countries, right? And I was like, what?
Sorry,
oh, thank
there's
you.
a microphone issue.
Okay, fine. And I was kind of like, why is this if these people are so powerful? And that's when I said, look, as a responsible for Facebook for Latin America for many years in San Francisco, I got the privilege to travel all around Latin America. And I was like, if there's one untapped region in the world, and this was back in 2017, is Latin America. And by the way, Latin America is not one country, it's completely different. Mexico from Colombia, from Guatemala, from Brazil. And that's what tricked, it's what caught my attention. And I was like, I want to be able to do things there where nobody was looking back then.
And you're not the only one, right? Like Uri, you have launched Belbo from Barcelona in Latin America, so why that?
Yes, I think that works. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so we saw something very similar to what Laura was mentioning back in 2019. We decided to launch Belbo with the mission of democratizing access to financial services in Latin America. And Pablo and myself were both from Spain, but we saw the opportunity was there. Why? Because this is a region where at the moment 50% of the population is still underserved in terms of financial services, and the access to technology, the access to data was booming. And it was a great opportunity. Basically what we do is we've built the open banking leading platform in Latin America. We allow companies to access financial data from end users through a very simple integration. And that is allowing people who don't have access to credit, to advise, to invest, et cetera, to now start getting that. And then a lot of companies are managing to offer them new financial services. And if you think about Europe or the US, I believe that we've seen how fintech has managed to maybe steal market share from existing players. But in LATAM, the opportunity is not only that, but also to expand the pie, to give access to people who were basically underserved. And that's huge. We believe the fintech opportunity in LATAM is actually a lot bigger than what we believe.
And it's not only, it has always been the case, right? Like going to Oscar, your experience with LATAM is before, right? How was that? and how that has evolved over the years? Because you were mentioning before that you guys were also thinking of going deeper now in LATAM.
Yes, well, in our case, it's a no-brainer decision because our product is a mobile B2B CRM, so mobility is everything for us. In Latin America, now, it's a super accelerated digitalization of mid-market companies, and it's something that is happening right now. It's happening most of the times going from pen and pencil, paper and pencil to the mobile. So this big change is happening everywhere, and our product is a great product for those companies. So we see a great opportunity. It's an untapped opportunity that right now it's getting there, and it's a massive market. It's not like Europe, that all of us we speak different languages, and it's like very complex. In Latin America, everyone speaks the same language, of course, aside Brazil, that it's kind of different. But I think it's a great opportunity, and we're investing a lot, and we're focusing a lot in this region.
And if we're thinking about expanding in LATAM from Europe, what about fundraising? Is it also like the place to go to look for fundraise? Like, what is your opinion? Yeah.
Yes. One of the things that we decided very early on is that we wanted to be a LATAM first and LATAM only company. We thought that at least our business model was very hard to maintain in different geographies like Europe and Latin America. We are in a regulated or semi-regulated environment. That affects a lot. So for us, it was very important to be only a Latin American company. In terms of fundraising, I think we've seen that the explosion and the interest is there. I think it's one of the regions that is subject to more change, and we foresee even more change in the next years. And that's what has triggered a lot of interest. We've proven that these type of new solutions can bring a lot of value to the region. And if you consider it, more than 600 million people region. So it's a huge market. And then, as Lara was saying, it has now received the attention that it deserves.
And it's a huge opportunity, not only in terms of size and common speaking language, but also, as you mentioned before, in terms of what is the digital adoption and how you can make a difference, right? In my daily work, we work a lot with startups and founders. And for those of us who are hearing, one question that comes across very often is, okay, we want to go to LATAM. How do we do the prioritization? Because LATAM, Brazil, is a huge continent. So I don't know who wants to take this question first.
I just wanted to add two things. So number one is that from the fund perspective, I do have a lot of investors from Latin America. I have none from Europe, which is very interesting. So not only that founders are getting capital from investors in Latin America, VCs from all over the world, we're getting investments for our funds as well from Latin American LPs, which are our investors, which is very interesting as well. And I am an American VC. So now on the side of Brazil is a completely different thing. It's kind of like everybody wants to go to Brazil because it's a 212 million population country. But you have to be in Brazil to understand how different it is to the rest of the world. So this is why when I was talking earlier, when you talk about Latin America, it's not one thing. It's very, very complex and different things. I have not seen a company coming from outside Brazil succeed in Brazil unless you are huge, because there's a lot of tax implications, there's a lot of labor implications, there's a lot of different things that we're not used to. I'm not saying that you can't make it happen. I'm just saying that before going into any of the Latin American countries, leave them from the inside, because the nuances are very, very different. So that's my experience with Brazil.
And Oscar, how do you see it? Because I know you launched in first Colombia and Mexico from here, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think you have to try it. You have to try to start selling in those countries from Spain at the beginning, if you are from Spain, because you can try. And then once you get initial traction, then you have to move there somehow. There are different ways to go. You can bring someone from your team, move someone from your team to the place, and build a team from scratch, from the ground up in the local region, or you can do so many ways, right? But the thing is that you can try it from here. it's feasible. It's not easy, but it's feasible at least. So you can do it, right? And trying things in startups, it's good and it's healthy, right? Before committing to big investments. So what we did is we tried from Spain. We saw that we were getting leads, we were converting leads, because this is one thing that sometimes it's a little bit misleading when you start with Latin America. You get a lot of leads, but the conversion is much lower than you have in Europe or the US. So it's different. It's like a kind of different culture. And when you go to enterprise, the buying signals are completely different. So at the beginning, you are a little bit, don't understand, and you cannot read the situations on where you are in the sales cycle, and you end up with a pipeline that looks great, and finally you are not closing anything because you are not reading the signals. So there is a big cultural difference, but in the end, going there with a first try, get initial traction, it's a very, very important signal to say, okay, I have to invest there and see what happens. We started with Colombia, then we moved to Mexico, and now we are in Mexico, Colombia, Chile, and we're investing as well in Peru.
And that's a very interesting point. For a 2B2 SaaS business, okay, you do a quick iteration, you launch on the market, it's starting to work. When is the right time to hire a local team, and whom could be the first person you would advise to put on your team?
You're asking me the question?
Yeah, because on B2B SaaS, you can iterate and expand in a market. You think you need to move marketing and business development right away, or what is the best person you need on the ground?
Well, I think it really depends on each company, but my experience, I'm talking from my experience, what I would do now, if I would start again, I would move someone from my headquarters, probably someone with C-level, with a big connection and understanding very well the culture of the company and things like this. I would move it to the region, and then make this guy, this lady, to build the team from scratch, right? But have someone that you trust there that can bring the culture and make the bond between the Latin America office and the Spain headquarters, if you have the headquarters here. Because communication is everything, right? Because when they start thinking that they're isolated from the company and they're like a different branch and things like this, when you stop being like a one team, is when everything starts like, falling down, yes.
Uri, how do you see it, since you guys already started like there?
Yeah, we did a bit different approach, and I think if you probably have to define the ideal person to start in Brazil, yes, you will probably define as somebody who is extremely close to you, to the founders of the company, the C-level, but also somebody who knows the market and has lived the market, right? I mean, we managed to find this person, and this person has led the expansion in Brazil. We had somebody in Brazil for several months before we started developing technology, before we started deciding what to build and how our product had to be different. And it has proven to be pretty successful so far. I mean, it's we see Brazil as a gigantic opportunity. Our customers are a lot bigger than in other countries. I mean, like any small company might have millions of users, and that has triggered understanding the market, more usage in Brazil, more deals. So we see as the #1 market. From the possibilities. I think it's pretty clear to everyone, but you do need to understand it from the inside. I think it's possible. It's challenging, but you need talent that has the Brazilian market.
And Brazil is a very complex market in terms of regulations, right? Laura, you were mentioning before.
Very complicated. So to give you an idea, if you buy a car in Brazil, most likely it will cost you 2 or 3 times what you pay in Spain, because the taxes are almost sometimes even more than 100%. So it's not just that the regulation is complex because they're very protective, but also that the cost of everything is a lot more expensive. And when you talk about labor regulation, it's impossible to have someone, or very complicated unless you open up shop in Brazil. So, but on the other side, it's very rewarding because it's a very big market, right? So what I have found in my trajectory prior to the Venture City, and we have many companies in Brazil, 7 companies, and then as a responsible for Facebook of the region, was that deep pockets matter very much when you're there, but not, deep pockets mean that you talent is very expensive in Brazil. I mean, you can find developers very cheap in the outside Minas Gerais or other areas that are not São Paulo or Rio. But when you are focused in those two cities, which are the major ones, everything exponentially gets complicated. And regulation changes very drastically, sadly, depending on the government, which is also quite a government, to say the least. So it's a very interesting place to go, very hard from the regulation standpoint. If you can go below the radar as much as you can until you become big and obviously better. But as they were saying, and they've been successful, it's not impossible. It's just a matter of productizing for Brazil. You know, I think that's the word.
Uri, what has been your experience in Brazil?
For us, and in the area that we operate, open banking and fintech, we see the regulator actually being extremely active, willing to make things happen. We haven't seen any country in the world that has been faster at trying to implement open banking. I think we are right at the moment where we're going to start seeing, I mean, how well it's going to work. But we're extremely happy with the push, with the initiatives, and with the commitment that the regulator has to really change the ecosystem, to really allow an open finance, because they know that this is going to be the future, because they know that's going to empower their economy like 5-10 years down the line. I mean, if you see the effect of Nubank in the country, it's just too big to ignore, right? Yeah. So the regulator is actually, from what we see, really startup friendly, really innovation friendly, and we even have access to several working tables within the regulator. So we have several people within the company sitting with the regulator on regular basis to define how we want to see the future together. So I think that's pretty unique and very positive of Brazil.
And it's another thing that we see as opportunity, because the market is emerging, so things are being done and built now, which is, I think Laura, you mentioned it before as well. In terms of the Spanish-speaking countries of LATAM, when we talk about, for startups again, who are thinking of launching, where do you see the biggest opportunity in Mexico and Colombia in terms of verticals?
I would just add one more thing on Brazil. Brazil was one of the first countries in the world where you could vote digitally, so they've leapfrogged. So if you see, they have 70% of the population under, poverty levels, but on the other side, they're very much digitized because there's no other way to get things there. Everybody carries a mobile or two. So the penetration of mobile in that country, you may not have more than 50 million PCs, but you're going to have over 300 million phones, which is one of these contrasts that you see in emerging markets. So in regards to Spanish LATAM, as they say, I would say I'm in love with Mexico. I mean, it's one of my favorite, but maybe because from Miami I'm very close, and so I was from San Francisco, but it is another 120 million population market. Regulation-wise, there has been a couple of hiccups lately in Mexico in fintech, but in general, I think that you seed something and it grows. They're super engaging. If you really build a product that people love there, it grows like crazy, and we've seen that in all kinds of products. We've seen it in fintech, in health tech, we've seen it in messaging, social, of course. They're social by design. So it's a really good market, but on the other side, if you're successful, you're very big successful, and if you're not, it's a big kind of like big mistake. This is why I always recommend places like Chile and Colombia for testing out first, because they are much smaller markets that you can kind of like control easier and learn in this A/B testing and this experimentation. But they're very different. But Mexico is the big thing. Chile is a 20 million population country, and very similar to us, and Colombia, it's in the middle, right? So it really depends. What Uri was saying is key. Productize for those markets before going there, get the user feedback, and depending on that, you polish, and then you decide to go in or not. But they're very different, and regulation is different. Similar, but different. So you need to lead. It's not one size fits all.
Oscar, what has been your experience with Force Manager?
Well, we started in Colombia. Colombia is a great country. They are really modernizing right now. So I think when you were talking about verticals, what it is like, there is a great meat market, right? I think that's the point. There are a lot of companies, mid-size companies, probably here that were in the same invoicing and the same and with the same numbers. There are bigger in terms of users, right? Which is like a big difference, and they are eager to modernize and digitalize their processes. So I think there is a great opportunity. We started in Colombia, and finally we settled definitely in Mexico, is where we have our headquarters, and probably where we have more clients right now. And then we work a lot in Chile as well. But right now our headquarters are in Mexico, is where we have all of our team that is like basically moving around.
And how important was for you to, when you were launching there, I think it was in 2014, how did you find a local network initially? Was it through VC funds, through business angels, through other CEOs who were launching there?
Well, and this is probably the most complicated part. When you launch with the parachute, and you have to get into the networks and know people. Well, of course you can start leveraging your like low-hanging fruit networks of expats from Spain. That is not the best way to do it, because you are biased, by the Spanish cultural and so on, and the cultural in Mexico and Colombia. You have to blend with the people, and get closer to the real problems of what they are having, right? So having like just the local network, that is like the easiest thing to do, it's not probably the best option. So basically, leveraging people, that it's investing there, other entrepreneurs, I think is the best way. And it's something that it's been working for me here in Spain as well. Always talking with other entrepreneurs is where you learn and where you get the best insights on everything, Not only basically you are doing what you are doing, about growing your company, processes, where to go, who to talk to, things like this.
No, absolutely. I don't know if, Uri, you already had a network going on there when you launched?
Not really. We relied a lot on the very early investors. They helped a lot. I mean, the very first ticket that we got was from a Mexican VC, and they actually, literally, they were going to banks and open accounts on our behalf because we could not do that. So they helped a lot on the first steps, and then it's joining the community. It's being part of it. At the beginning, maybe trying to pretend that you're more than what you are. It was like we were two people with a PowerPoint moving around, but you have to transmit this vision, get to know the other startups, get to know the fintech ecosystem. In the end, these are going to be the early adopters of your product, right? You want to get to know them as soon as possible. How you're going to tackle, I don't know, like big companies, banks, etc. That's going to come when you already have the infrastructure to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're almost on time, but like as a closing remarks, Laura, where else is there money in Latin America besides VCs?
Well, in fact, this was something that I wanted to share with everybody. I think that two things. We're going to start seeing Latin American founded companies coming to Europe, and they are already landing in the US, which is fantastic, because at the end of the day, zip code doesn't matter. What matters is the talent and the vision of the founders. So I'm really looking forward to see that happening. And the second thing is that the capital available today in Latin America is not just coming from VCs. And if any of you are founders here, I would say that the mutual due diligence is key. So not always you need capital from an institutional venture capital. It could be, there's a lot of different networks right now, AngelList, and so many investing, crowdsourcing platforms. I don't recommend them very much, depending. If it's B2C, it's okay. If it's not, I wouldn't recommend them. But anyway, there's a lot of angel networks and a lot of different ways that you can raise capital. And so be very, more than ever, be kind of strict. Okay, so what do you need to offer? What are you offering me as a founder, right? It's not always what as a founder you're offering to the venture capital, but the other way around. What kind of, as Uri was saying, his VCs were opening doors to him in this kind of, so I think this is very important that you guys start to work together. So there's a lot of capital in the market right now, crazy valuations. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. Don't feel the pressure of the valuations and the amount of capital, and just choose wisely the investors because there's more capital than ever flowing around in Latin America, in Europe, and in the US.
So great opportunity. So thanks a lot for being here. It's been a pleasure. And that's it. I think we're in time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.